During a lavish dinner to celebrate their relationship, a millionaire prepares every detail for a perfect evening. While his partner is going to the bathroom, a homeless girl approaches him and warns him, "Sir, she put something in your cake." Taken. By instinct, he silently changes the dessert plates without anyone noticing. When she returns, everyone is shocked by what has happened. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel, don't forget to like this video, and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The New York City skyline glittered like a diamond necklace against the night sky as Richard Blackwood adjusted his Armani tie. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Le Ciel, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, he could see the Empire State Building illuminated in a soft blue glow. 52 floors above the bustling streets, Richard had reserved the private dining alcove, strategically positioned to offer both privacy and a panoramic view that few could afford. At 45, Richard embodied success. His real estate empire stretched across 3 continents, his name adorned buildings in 12 major cities, and his personal fortune had long since exceeded the billion-dollar mark. Yet tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight was about Vanessa. Vanessa. Palmer entered the dining area with the practiced grace of a woman accustomed to turning heads. Her emerald dress hugged her slender frame, complementing her auburn hair, which cascaded over her shoulders in loose waves. At 34, she possessed both beauty and the sharp intelligence that had first attracted Richard when they met at a charity gala 2 years ago. "You've outdone yourself," she said, her eyes taking in the intimate setting. The table adorned with white roses, crystal champagne flutes, and the subtle glow of candlelight. 2 years deserves a celebration, but this is... She paused, running her fingers over the embossed menu. Magnificent. Richard smiled, though only half his mouth. Moved upward. "Only the best for us," he said, pouring Dom Perignon into her glass. "To another year of extraordinary moments." Their glasses clinked, the crystal producing a clear, pure sound that seemed to linger in the air. The meal progressed through courses of culinary artistry. Seared scallops with truffle essence, duck confit with cherry reduction, palate cleansers of champagne sorbet. Throughout dinner, Richard found himself studying Vanessa more intently than usual. There was something different about her tonight, a subtle tension in her shoulders, a flicker of nervousness behind her practiced smile. "Is everything all right?" he asked between courses. "You seem distracted." "Just overwhelmed by all this," she replied, gesturing to the extravagant display. "And perhaps a little anxious about my gift to you. It's not quite ready yet." Richard nodded, though doubt crept in at the edges of his thoughts. In 2 years, he'd learned to read Vanessa's expressions, and tonight something wasn't aligning. Her words said one thing, but her body language told another story. As the main course plates were cleared, Vanessa excused herself. "I need to freshen up before dessert," she said, kissing his cheek before disappearing toward the restrooms. Left alone, Richard sipped his wine and gazed out at the city. His phone buzzed with messages from Dubai and Singapore, but tonight they could wait. He'd built his empire by being present in every moment, by reading people and situations with uncanny accuracy. And right now his instincts were quietly, persistently ringing an alarm he couldn't quite define. The head chef himself, Claude Bernier, appeared with 2 covered silver platters. "Monsieur Blackwood, our special anniversary dessert. Chocolate, a soufflé with gold leaf and raspberry coulis. Madame Palmer mentioned it was your favorite." Richard thanked him, noting that while chocolate was indeed his favorite, he'd never discussed dessert preferences with Vanessa. A minor detail, perhaps, but it registered in the growing list of small discrepancies. As Claude retreated, Richard's attention was drawn to a commotion near the restaurant's entrance. A small figure darted between the maitre d' and a security, a guard, weaving through tables with remarkable agility. Within seconds, a girl no older than 12 appeared at the edge of his alcove, breathing heavily. She wore a faded blue hoodie several sizes too large, jeans with holes at the knees, and sneakers so worn the brand was unidentifiable. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her eyes, startlingly blue and intensely focused, locked onto Richard's with an urgency that made him straighten in his chair. "Don't eat that cake," she whispered, pointing to the cupboard. "Dessert platters. She put something in it." Richard stared at the girl, momentarily speechless. "What? Who are you? How did you—" "Please," the girl interrupted, her voice trembling but determined. "I heard them talking in the kitchen. She bribed someone to put something in your dessert. Something bad." Before Richard could process her words or ask another question, the security guard appeared behind the girl. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Blackwood. This street kid snuck in through the service entrance. She'll be removed immediately." "Wait," Richard began, but the girl was already pulling away. "Switch the plates," she whispered urgently as the guard took her arm. "When she's not looking, please." And then she was gone, dragged out of the alcove, despite her struggles. Richard heard the manager apologizing profusely, promising that such a breach would never happen again. Left alone with the covered desserts, Richard found himself facing an absurd dilemma. The rational part of his mind, the part that had built skyscrapers and negotiated billion-dollar deals, dismissed the girl's warning as nonsense. Why would Vanessa want to harm him? It was preposterous, the stuff of melodramatic thrillers. Yet another part of him, the intuitive side that had saved him from countless bad investments, couldn't shake the girl's desperate intensity. Those eyes hadn't been lying. And there had been something off about Vanessa all evening. Richard glanced toward the restrooms. Vanessa was still absent. With a quick movement that surprised even himself, he switched the positions of the covered platters, ensuring his was now in front of Vanessa's seat. As he did so, he noticed a small card with his name elegantly printed on it beside one of the platters, the one that had originally been placed before him. He had just settled back into his chair when Vanessa returned, her makeup freshly applied, her smile dazzling. "Dessert has arrived," Richard said casually, his heart racing despite his outward calm. "The chef mentioned it's chocolate soufflé." "Your favorite," Vanessa replied, taking her seat. "I made sure they prepared it specially." With practiced ceremoniousness, they simultaneously lifted the silver covers from their desserts. Identical chocolate soufflés sat before them, garnished with gold leaf and surrounded by artful swirls of raspberry sauce. "It looks divine," Vanessa said, picking up her spoon. "Shall we?" Richard pretended to take a bite, then set his spoon down to reach for his wine. "This pairing is excellent," he commented, watching as Vanessa took a generous portion of her soufflé. She agreed, savoring the dessert. "It's perfect." For the next 20 minutes, Richard maintained the charade, moving his dessert around the plate while engaging in light conversation. He asked about her upcoming charity event, discussed plans for a weekend in the Hamptons, all while discreetly watching Vanessa for any signs of change. At first, there were none. Then, as they finished their coffee, he noticed her rubbing her temple. "Headache?" he asked. "Just a slight one," she replied, her fingers pressing harder against her forehead. "Probably too much champagne." 10 minutes later, her hands began to tremble subtly as she reached for her water glass. A thin sheen of perspiration appeared on her forehead, despite the room's perfect temperature. Richard observed all this with growing alarm and confirmation of the unthinkable. "Perhaps we should call it a night," he suggested. "You don't seem well." "No," Vanessa insisted, her voice slightly strained. "I'm fine. Besides, I have a surprise. For you, it should be arriving any minute." As if on cue, her phone chimed with a message. Richard watched as she checked it, her expression flickering with confusion and then concern. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Of course," she said too quickly, sliding the phone into her clutch. "Just work, always something." But Richard had glimpsed the message. Nothing yet. It should have worked by now. And in that moment, as Vanessa's hand trembled and her eyes darted nervously around the room, Richard Blackwood realized that the street girl with the desperate eyes had just saved his life. Richard maintained his composure with the practiced ease of a man who had negotiated high-stakes deals under pressure. His mind, however, raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Across the table, Vanessa's condition deteriorated rapidly. Her words began to slur slightly, and the tremor in her hands became impossible to hide. "Vanessa, you're clearly unwell," Richard said firmly. "I'm calling for medical assistance." "No." The force of her objection startled him. "I just need some air. Let's pay and go for a walk." Her desperation to avoid medical attention only reinforced his suspicions. With deliberate calm, Richard signaled for the check while reaching for Vanessa's clutch on the pretext of retrieving his credit card from her. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice unsteady. "My platinum card is in your purse, remember? From when you picked up those earrings this afternoon." It was a lie, but Vanessa was too disoriented to challenge him. As he opened her clutch, he quickly slipped her phone into his pocket. The waiter arrived with the check, and Richard handed over his actual card, all while watching Vanessa's increasingly unstable condition. "Richard," she whispered, her pupils dilated, "I don't feel right." "I know," he said simply. "Help is coming." Before she could protest again, Richard had already signaled to the maitre d', who approached with concern evident on his face. "Mr. Blackwood, is everything all right?" "No, my companion is experiencing a medical emergency. Please call an ambulance immediately." The restaurant erupted into controlled chaos. The manager appeared, staff cleared a path, and within minutes the exclusive sanctum of Le Ciel was invaded by paramedics. Richard provided them with clipped, precise information. Vanessa's age, the sudden onset of symptoms, her apparent disorientation. "Sir, are you aware if she ingested anything unusual?" one paramedic asked as they prepared to transport her. "Only what was served at dinner," Richard replied carefully, "though I believe there may have been something in her dessert that wasn't meant to be there." The paramedic's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting intentional contamination?" "I'm suggesting you might want to run toxicology," Richard said quietly, "and perhaps preserve a sample of that soufflé." As they wheeled Vanessa toward the elevator, Richard pulled the restaurant manager aside. "I need the security footage from tonight, particularly of the kitchen and our table. There was a young girl who came to warn me. I need to know who she is and how she knew." The manager hesitated. "Mr. Blackwood, that would require police involvement." "Then, involve them," Richard said, his voice leaving no room for negotiation. "Because what happened here tonight was no accident." In the ambulance, Richard sat beside a semi-conscious Vanessa, her manicured hand now connected to an IV. His thoughts turned to the street girl, her desperate warning, her certainty, her disappearance. Why would a homeless child risk security and arrest to warn a stranger? How had she known? At Manhattan General Hospital, Vanessa was whisked away for treatment, while Richard was directed to a waiting area. Alone for the first time since the incident, he pulled out Vanessa's phone. It was locked, but he knew her passcode, her birth, year and month, something he'd noticed months ago but never mentioned. The message history confirmed his worst fears. A thread with someone saved only as Jay contained explicit discussions about dosage, timing, and effects. Most chilling was the message he'd glimpsed at the restaurant, followed by increasingly frantic exchanges. Jay. Nothing yet? It should have worked by now. Vanessa. Nothing. He's fine. Something's wrong. Jay. Did the chef follow instructions? Vanessa. Yes. I watched him prepare it myself. Jay. Then he should be showing symptoms. Unless... The last message had come in while they were in. The ambulance. Jay. Did you switch plates? Check the plates. Richard's hand tightened around the phone. There was more, much more. Scrolling back through weeks of messages revealed a calculated plan targeting not just his evening, but his entire fortune. References to his will, which named Vanessa as a significant beneficiary. Insurance policies and offshore accounts painted a picture of meticulous planning. Most disturbing were the casual references to his anticipated accident and the new life Vanessa and Jay planned afterward. Richard had never considered himself naive, but the depth of this betrayal stunned him. 2 years of his life, of trust and shared intimacy, had been a sophisticated long con. A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm Dr. Patel. We've stabilized Ms. Palmer and are running tests. Initial results suggest some form of toxin, possibly plant-based. Can you think of anything she might have consumed that you didn't?" "Only the chocolate souffle," Richard replied. "We had identical meals otherwise." "Well, whatever it was, it's serious. If she hadn't received prompt medical attention..." Dr. Patel let the implication hang in the air. "The police will want to speak with you both once she's stabilized." Richard nodded. "I'll cooperate fully, and doctor, I have reason to believe this wasn't accidental. You might want to secure her belongings." As the doctor left, Richard found himself facing a moral dilemma. Part of him wanted to walk away, to let Vanessa face the consequences of her actions alone. But a larger part, the part that had built his reputation on integrity, knew he needed to see this through. His phone rang the restaurant manager. "Mr. Blackwood, the police are reviewing our security footage. They've identified the girl, though not by name. She appears to be a regular in the area, possibly lives on the streets near Central Park. The officers mentioned she's been seen at St. Thomas's shelter on 82nd. "Thank you," Richard said. "And the kitchen footage shows one of our new sous chefs adding something to a dessert marked with your name. He's been detained for questioning." Richard ended the call and stared out the hospital window at the city lights. Somewhere out there was a street-smart girl who had saved his life for reasons he couldn't fathom. Finding her suddenly seemed as important as understanding the conspiracy against him. A text message interrupted his thoughts from his head of security, whom he'd contacted en route to the hospital. "Team in place at hospital. Detective Harris arriving in 5. Full background on Palmer being compiled now. First red flag. Vanessa Palmer appears to be an identity created 3 years ago." Richard wasn't surprised. The woman he thought he knew was unraveling by the minute, replaced by a stranger whose true intentions chilled him. He straightened his tie and prepared to meet the detective, but his thoughts remained fixed on finding the mysterious girl. 2 hours later, having provided his statement and surrendered Vanessa's phone to the police, Richard was free to leave. Detective Harris had been skeptical at first, but the evidence from the phone, combined with the chef's confession that he'd been bribed to add special ingredients to Richard's dessert, had transformed skepticism into grim conviction. "We'll need your continued cooperation, Mr. Blackwood," Harris said. "Ms. Palmer, or whatever her real name is, had accomplices. This appears to be part of a larger scheme." "You'll have it," Richard assured him, "but right now, there's someone else I need to find." It was nearly midnight when Richard's Bentley pulled up outside St. Thomas's shelter. The neighborhood was a stark contrast to the luxury of Le Ciel. Here, reality wasn't softened by champagne and gold leaf. Richard instructed his driver to wait and approach the entrance, where a tired-looking woman was just locking up. "I'm sorry, sir, intake is closed for the night," she said automatically, then did a double take at his formal attire. "I'm not seeking shelter," Richard explained. "Saidi, I'm looking for a young girl, possibly 11 or 12, dark hair, blue eyes. She may have come here tonight." The woman's expression hardened. "We don't give out information about our youth residents." Richard understood her caution. "My name is Richard Blackwood. This girl saved my life tonight, and I need to thank her. More importantly, she may be in danger because of it." The woman, Sister Margaret, according to her name tag, studied him carefully. "Mr. Blackwood, the developer? The one building that new art center in Brooklyn?" He nodded. "Wait here," she said, disappearing inside. Minutes stretched into a quarter hour before Sister Margaret returned. "She's not here tonight, but I know who you're describing. That's Lily. She comes and goes, never stays more than a night or two. Smart as a whip, but wary of authority. Do you know where I might find her?" "She has hideouts all over the Upper East Side. There's an abandoned newsstand near 86th and Lexington she sometimes uses, or the south entrance to the park. But Mr. Blackwood," Sister Margaret's voice softened, "that child has been let down by every adult in her life. Whatever your intentions, be careful with her trust." Richard nodded, understanding the weight of the warning. "Thank you, sister." As his car pulled away from the shelter, Richard made a decision. If finding Vanessa's accomplices was the police's job, finding Lily was his, not just to thank her, but to understand why a street child would risk everything to save a stranger. What he couldn't know then was that finding Lily would change not just the course of his investigation, but the entire trajectory of his life. Dawn broke over Manhattan, painting the sky in watercolor hues of pink and gold. Richard hadn't slept. After leaving the shelter, he'd spent hours searching the locations Sister Margaret had mentioned, but Lily remained elusive. Now, as his driver circled the southern edge of Central Park for the third time, exhaustion clouded his thoughts. "Sir," his driver Michael ventured, "perhaps we should resume the search after you've rested." Richard rubbed his eyes. "One more circuit," he insisted, "then we'll head back to the penthouse." His phone rang. Detective Harris. "Mr. Blackwood, we've made progress. The chef confirmed he was paid $20,000 to add a specific compound to your dessert. A compound that would have caused cardiac arrest within hours." Richard's blood ran cold. "And Vanessa?" "Still unconscious but stable. We've identified her accomplice from their communications, Jason Mercer, former hedge fund manager with a history of fraud. We're tracking his whereabouts now." "Have you found any connection to other potential victims?" "That's why I'm calling. We found a list in Miss Palmer's cloud storage. Wealthy individuals, all single, all with significant assets. Your name was third on a list of 12. 2 of the others suffered unexpected health emergencies in the past year. The implications were staggering." "You're saying this is a pattern?" "We believe so. A sophisticated operation targeting high-net-worth individuals without close family ties. Ms. Palmer appears to be one of several operatives." After ending the call, Richard stared blankly at the passing scenery. He'd built walls around himself after his wife's departure 7 years ago, focused solely on his empire. Now those walls had nearly cost him everything. "Sir," Michael interrupted his thoughts, "I think that's her." Richard looked where his driver pointed. Near the park entrance, a small figure in a blue hoodie sat on a bench, apparently watching the morning joggers. Even from a distance, Richard recognized the wary posture. "Stop here," he instructed. "Wait for me." He approached slowly, aware that sudden movements might startle her. As he drew closer, Lily spotted him. For a moment, she tensed as if preparing to run, then seemed to reconsider. "You switched the plates," she said when he reached her. It wasn't a question. "Yes." Richard sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "You saved my life. I need to understand how you knew." Lily studied him with eyes too old for her young face. "Listen, people don't notice kids like me. We're invisible." "Not to me," Richard said quietly. "Not anymore. My name is Richard Blackwood." "I know who you are," she replied. "Your pictures on buildings." "And you're Lily?" She shrugged. "That's what they call me at the shelter." "Lily, what exactly did you overhear?" The girl pulled her knees up to her chest, a defensive posture. "I was behind the restaurant. They throw out good food sometimes. Fancy stuff that rich people don't finish. I found a spot where I can hear the kitchen." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "That woman, your girlfriend, she came in through the back, met with a guy in chef clothes, gave him money, told him to put something in your special dessert." "Did she say what it was?" Lily shook her head. "Just that you wouldn't taste it in the chocolate, and that it would look like—" She hesitated. "Like your heart just stopped." The clinical precision of the plan made Richard's skin crawl. "Why did you warn me? You took an enormous risk." For the first time, Lily looked uncertain. "I don't know. People shouldn't do that to each other." The simplicity of her moral code, despite whatever hardships had placed her on the streets, moved Richard deeply. "Thank you isn't enough," he said finally. "But I am grateful, more than I can express." Lily nodded, clearly uncomfortable with gratitude. "Is she in trouble now, the woman?" "Yes, serious trouble." "Good." The word contained years of witnessed injustices. Richard chose his next words carefully. "Lily, the police need your testimony. You're a key witness." Fear flashed across her face. "No cops. They'll put me in the system." "I understand your concern," Richard said. "But this is bigger than just me. Other people may be in danger." Lily's expression hardened. "I told you what I heard. That's all I can do." Richard recognized the futility of pushing further. Instead, he shifted course. "When did you last eat?" The question caught her off guard. "Yesterday. Some guy gave me half his hot dog. Would you allow me to buy you breakfast? No strings attached, just food." Suspicion warred with hunger in her eyes. Finally, hunger won. "There's a diner on 79th. They don't kick me out if I have money." 30 minutes later, they sat in a worn booth at Murphy's Diner. Lily devoured pancakes and eggs with the intensity of someone who never knew when her next meal would come. Richard sipped coffee, giving her space to eat while fielding urgent texts from his executive team and legal counsel. "Your phone keeps buzzing," Lily observed between bites. "People wondering why I'm not in the office," Richard replied. "Yesterday, I was eventful." "Because someone tried to kill you?" Richard winced at her bluntness. "Yes, that tends to disrupt one's schedule." Unexpectedly, Lily smiled, a quick flash that transformed her face from guarded to genuinely childlike. "You talk funny. All proper." "Occupational hazard of board meetings," Richard said, returning her smile. "Lily, may I ask how old you—" "Harrison, 11, almost 12. And how long have you been on your own?" The smile vanished. "A while." Richard didn't press further. "I have a proposition for you." Wariness returned to her posture. "What kind of proposition?" "I need your help with the investigation. In return, I can offer you safe accommodation, meals, new clothes, whatever you need." "You want to put me in foster care," she said flatly. "No, I have a guest suite in my apartment. You'd have privacy, security, and no obligations beyond telling the police what you heard." Lily's eyes narrowed. "Why would you do that? You don't know me." "Because you saved my life without knowing me," Richard answered simply. "And because I think we can help each other." "I don't see how I help you beyond what I already did." Richard leaned forward slightly. "Lily, according to the police, there are others involved in this scheme. Vanessa wasn't working alone. Your testimony could help stop them before someone else gets hurt." For a long moment, Lily stared at her empty plate. When she looked up, her blue eyes held a mixture of caution and resolve. 3 days. I'll stay for 3 days and talk to the police once. Then I'm gone. That's my deal." Richard knew better than to push. "Deal." The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of the Blackwood, Richard's flagship residential tower on Park Avenue. As the private elevator ascended, Lily stood perfectly still, her small backpack clutched tightly against her chest. "The elevator requires a security key," Richard explained, sensing her anxiety. "No one can access this floor without one." When the doors opened directly into the penthouse foyer, Lily's composure finally cracked. Her eyes widened as she took in the soaring ceilings, the wall of windows framing Central Park, the understated luxury of a home designed by Manhattan's most sought-after architect. "You live here alone?" she asked, her voice small. "I do." The admission carried a weight Richard hadn't anticipated. Mrs. Chen, his housekeeper, appeared from the kitchen. Her professionally neutral expression flickered briefly at the sight of Lily before smoothing again. "Mrs. Chen, this is Lily. She'll be staying with us for a few days. Please prepare the blue guest suite." "Of course, Mr. Blackwood," Mrs. Chen replied with a slight bow. "Will Miss Lily be joining you for lunch?" Richard looked at Lily, who seemed overwhelmed by the formality. "Perhaps we could have lunch on the terrace. Something simple." As Mrs. Chen disappeared to make arrangements, Richard showed Lily to her suite. The Blue Room, as he called it, had been designed for his niece's visits that rarely materialized. As his sister's family remained firmly rooted in London, the room featured a queen-sized bed, a private bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in, and a small sitting area with views of the East River. "This is all yours while you're here," Richard explained. "There are clothes in the closet that might fit you. My niece left them last summer. The bathroom has everything you might need, but if something's missing, just ask Mrs. Chen." Lily stood in the center of the room, looking impossibly small against the elegant furnishings. "This is bigger than the whole shelter." "Take some time to settle in," Richard said gently. "Lunch will be ready in an hour. Then, if you're up to it, Detective Harris would like to speak with you." Left alone, Lily moved cautiously through the room, touching fabrics and surfaces as if they might dissolve under her fingers. The reality of her situation, from homeless to housed in a Park Avenue penthouse, seemed too fantastical to absorb, all at once. In his home office, Richard contacted his legal team. Given Lily's status as a minor without guardian representation, he needed to ensure her rights were protected during any police interview. His lawyers arranged for a child advocate to be present and advised Richard on the limitations of his temporary guardianship. By the time lunch was served on the terrace, Richard had made two decisions. First, he would use every resource at his disposal to help the police dismantle whatever organization had targeted him. Second, he would find a way to ensure Lily's future security, regardless of whether she stayed beyond her 3-day deadline. Lily appeared for lunch in the same worn clothes as though her face and hands were freshly washed. She ate sandwiches and fruit with the same focused intensity as at the diner, stopping occasionally to gaze out at the panoramic view of Manhattan spread below them. "After lunch," Richard said carefully, "Detective Harris will come with a lady named Ms. Washington. She's a child advocate. Her job is to make sure your rights are protected during the interview." Lily set down her glass of lemonade. "What will they ask me?" "To describe what you heard and saw at the restaurant. They'll record your statement so you don't have to repeat it later in court." "Will she be there? The woman who tried to hurt you?" "No, she's still in the hospital, under guard." Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied. Then, with the directness of a child, she asked, "Did you love her?" The question caught Richard off guard. Had he loved Vanessa? He'd certainly been comfortable with her, enjoyed her company, appreciated her intelligence and beauty. But love required vulnerability, and Richard had carefully limited how much of himself he truly shared. "I thought I might eventually," he answered honestly, "but I realize now I never really knew her." "That's sad," Lily said simply. "Yes," Richard agreed. "It is." Their conversation was interrupted by Mrs. Chen announcing Detective Harris's arrival. As Lily tensed visibly, Richard offered his hand. "Remember, I'll be right there with you. Just tell them what you heard, exactly as you told me." After a moment's hesitation, Lily placed her small hand in his. Together, they walked inside to meet the detective, neither aware that this interview would set in motion events that would irrevocably change both their lives. Detective Harris was a compact, efficient woman with cropped silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She greeted Richard with professional courtesy, then knelt to Lily's eye level. "You must be Lily," she said, her tone gentle but not condescending. "I'm Detective Harris. Thank you for agreeing to talk with me today." Lily said nothing, her gaze shifting to the woman who stood behind the detective, Ms. Washington, the child advocate. Tall and elegant in a simple blue suit, she offered Lily a warm smile. "I'm here to make sure everything goes smoothly for you," Ms. Washington explained. "If you need a break or don't understand something, just let me know." They settled in. Richard's study, a wood-paneled room with comfortable leather chairs arranged in a conversational circle rather than across a desk. Detective Harris set up a small recording device, explaining each step as she did so. "This is just so we can remember exactly what you tell us," she assured Lily. "Is that okay with you?" Lily nodded, perched on the edge of her chair like a bird ready for flight. The interview proceeded with remarkable gentleness. Detective Harris had clearly conducted many interviews with traumatized children and knew how to create space for Lily's story without pushing too hard. Lily's answers started as terse, one-word responses but gradually expanded as her comfort grew. "So you were behind Liciel looking for discarded food," Harris summarized. "Is that something you do regularly?" "Sometimes. They throw out good stuff on Thursdays and Fridays. Rich people waste a lot." Richard winced slightly at this observation. "And that's when you overheard Ms. Palmer talking to someone in the kitchen?" Lily nodded. "She came through the back door. The security guy let her in. They knew each other. She went to the kitchen and talked to a man in white clothes. A chef, I guess. He had one of those tall white hats. And what did you hear them discuss? Lily's voice grew quieter. She gave him money. A lot. All hundreds. Said to make sure. Mr. Blackwood's dessert had the special ingredient in it. Said no one would taste it in the chocolate. Did they mention what this ingredient was? No, but she said... Lily hesitated, glancing at Richard. She said it would look natural. Like his heart just stopped. The clinical detachment of the statement hung in the air. Richard felt a chill despite the room's warmth. Did they say anything else? Harris prompted gently. Lily's brow furrowed in concentration. The chef guy was nervous, kept saying it was risky. She told him there'd be another payment when it was done, and that no one would suspect anything because... She broke off suddenly. Because what, Lily? Ms. Washington encouraged. Because they'd been planning it for 2 years. Since the day they met. 2 years, the entirety of their relationship. Richard's hands tightened on the arms of his chair, his knuckles whitening. Every dinner, every weekend getaway, every intimate moment, all part of an elaborate scheme. After you heard this, Harris continued, seemingly unaffected by the revelations, wait, what did you do? I ran around to the front. The door guy tried to stop me, but I slipped past him. I had to find the right table. How did you know which was Mr. Blackwood's table? I'd seen his pictures before, in magazines, and they were at the fancy table by the windows. I just knew. The simplicity of Lily's heroism struck Richard anew. This child, with nothing to gain and everything to risk, had acted purely on moral instinct. The interview continued for another 20 minutes, with Lily describing how she'd escaped the restaurant after delivering her warning. Finally, Detective Harris switched off the recorder. Lily, you've been incredibly helpful. Your testimony will be crucial in this investigation. Ms. Washington leaned forward. Is there anything else you'd like to tell Detective Harris? Anything? You remembered while you were talking? Lily hesitated, then reached into the pocket of her hoodie. I have this, she said, pulling out what appeared to be an ancient flip phone. I sometimes find phones in the trash. This one still worked, so I keep it for emergencies. She handed it to the detective. After I heard them talking, I tried to record some of it. I don't know if it worked right. The sound is bad. Harris accepted the phone with evident surprise. You recorded their conversation? Just a little, before they started giving details about the special ingredient. Richard and Harris exchanged glances of astonishment. Potential audio evidence would significantly strengthen the case. Lily, this is extraordinary, Harris said. May I take this phone as evidence? We'll provide you with a replacement. You can keep it, Lily shrugged. The battery's almost dead anyway. After Harris and Washington departed with promises to return the following day, Richard found himself alone with Lily in the suddenly quiet penthouse. Are you okay? He asked, noting her exhaustion. Yeah. She looked up at him, uncertainty in her eyes. Did I do good? You did better than good, Richard assured her. You were exceptional. Relief washed over her face. Can I go rest now? I'm really tired. Of course. I'll have Mrs. Chen bring dinner to your room later if you'd prefer. Lily nodded gratefully and retreated to the blue room, leaving Richard to process the day's revelations. The recorded conversation, however brief, could prove decisive in building a case against Vanessa and her accomplices. More personally disturbing was the confirmation that their entire relationship had been orchestrated from the beginning, as I had a sophisticated long con targeting his fortune. Richard poured himself a scotch and moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. As evening fell, lights twinkled on across Manhattan like stars being born. For the first time in years, he felt untethered from the certainties that had defined his existence, his judgment, his self-sufficiency, his careful control of relationships. His phone rang, interrupting his introspection. It was Harris. Mr. Blackwood, we've analyzed the audio from Lily's phone. Despite the poor quality, it corroborates her testimony. We can clearly hear Ms. Palmer discussing payment for adding something to your dessert. That's good news, Richard said. There's more, Harris continued. Ms. Palmer has regained consciousness. Upon learning about the evidence against her, she's offered to cooperate in exchange for consideration during sentencing. What kind of cooperation? Names, dates, operational details. According to her initial statement, she's part of a network. That targets wealthy individuals. She claims she was recruited after falling into debt with the wrong people. Do you believe her? Harris paused. Partially. Our background check confirms she was once legitimately employed in private wealth management. Had some gambling issues, lost her license, accumulated debt. But that doesn't excuse targeting innocent people. No, Richard agreed, it doesn't. There's something else you should know, Harris added, her tone shifting. We've looked into Lily's background based on what little information we have. There's no record of a missing child matching her description. No foster care history, no school enrollment, nothing. How is that possible? We're still investigating, but it appears she may have been living off the grid for years. Perhaps with a parent or guardian who kept her isolated, or worse. The implications were disturbing. A child with no official existence was vulnerable in ways Richard could barely comprehend. What happens to her after the 3 days? He asked. Normally, she'd enter the system. Foster care, most likely. Richard thought of Lily's fierce independence, her intelligence, her fundamental decency, despite whatever circumstances had placed her on the streets. What if there were alternatives? He asked carefully. Such as? I'm not sure yet, but I'd like to explore options before defaulting to foster care. Harris's voice softened slightly. Mr. Blackwood, I understand your gratitude toward Lily, but temporary guardianship is very different from long-term responsibility. I'm aware, Richard replied. Just keep me informed about the next steps in the case. After ending the call, Richard instructed Mrs. Chen to prepare dinner for Lily and bring it to her room. Then he contacted his legal team again, this time with specific questions about guardianship, adoption, and the rights of undocumented children. The following morning, Richard was reviewing documents in his home office when Mrs. Chen announced that Lily was awake and asking for breakfast. He found her on the terrace, wrapped in a plush robe several sizes too large, her hair damp from a shower. Good morning, he greeted her. Sleep well? Your bathtub is big enough to swim in, she replied, which wasn't quite an answer. And the water stays hot forever. Richard smiled, recognizing luxuries he took for granted through her eyes. I've asked Mrs. Chen to prepare whatever breakfast you'd like. Pancakes again, with blueberries this time? Absolutely. As they ate, Richard noticed Lily studying him with unusual intensity. Finally, she set down her fork. Why are you being so nice to me? The directness of the question was typical Lily. Several reasons, Richard answered honestly. Gratitude, certainly, but also because I think you deserve kindness. Everyone does, but especially children. I'm not a regular kid, she said, picking at her pancakes. No, you're not. You're extraordinary. She looked up sharply, clearly unused, to praise. The detective lady asked me about my parents yesterday, after you left the room. Richard kept his expression neutral. What did you tell her? That I don't have any. Not anymore. I'm sorry, Lily. She shrugged with practiced indifference. It was a long time ago. My mom got sick when I was 7. After she was gone, I stayed with her friend for a while, but then that lady disappeared too. I've been okay, on my own. The casual recitation of abandonment broke something in Richard's chest. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed with a message from Harris. Breakthrough in case, multiple arrests overnight. Need to speak with you and Lily ASAP. An hour later, Detective Harris arrived with Ms. Washington and a third person, a slender man in his early 40s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Blackwood, Lily. This is Dr. Bennett from Child Services, Harris introduced him. Given the unusual circumstances, I thought it would be helpful to have him join us. Richard tensed slightly, aware of how quickly things were moving. They settled in the living room, where Harris updated them on the investigation's progress. Based on Ms. Palmer's cooperation and evidence from Lily's recording, we executed search warrants at multiple locations last night. We've arrested 4 individuals, including Jason Mercer, Ms. Palmer's primary accomplice. The J from the text messages, Richard clarified. Exactly. Mercer has been linked to at least 3 other similar schemes targeting wealthy individuals. In 2 cases, the victims suffered severe health emergencies but survived. In the third, she glanced at Lily, clearly editing her words. The outcome was less fortunate. Were they all poisonings? Richard asked. Various methods, but yes, all involved introducing harmful substances. Ms. Palmer's role was typically to establish relationships with the targets, gain their trust, and create opportunities for the incidents. Richard absorbed this information with growing horror. How many others had been deceived as he had? How many hadn't been fortunate enough to have their own guardian angel appear at the crucial moment? Now regarding Lily, Harris continued, turning to the young girl who sat cross-legged on the sofa. Dr. Bennett is here to discuss next steps. Dr. Bennett smiled warmly at Lily. First, I want to thank you for your bravery. What you did was remarkable. Lily said nothing, her expression guarded. We've been unable to locate any records for you in our system, he continued gently. Can you tell me your full name and date of birth? Lily, she said firmly. Just Lily. And I'm 11, almost. 12. No last name? She shrugged. Maybe once. I don't remember it now. Dr. Bennett exchanged glances with Harris. Well, Lily, we need to find a safe, permanent place for you to live. Somewhere you can go to school, make friends, have a normal childhood. I was doing fine before, Lily insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. You were surviving, Dr. Bennett corrected kindly. But children deserve more than just survival. They deserve to thrive. Richard had remained silent during this exchange, but now he leaned forward. Dr. Bennett, what exactly are you proposing? Initially, emergency foster placement while we established Lily's legal identity. Then, depending on the circumstances, long-term foster care or potential adoption if suitable candidates emerge. Richard felt Lily tense beside him. Her 3-day agreement was rapidly approaching a critical juncture, one that could send her back into a system she clearly feared, or worse, back to the streets if she ran. What if I were to apply for temporary guardianship? Richard asked, the words emerging before he'd fully processed them. While the legal details are sorted out, 4 pairs of eyes turned to him in surprise, none more shocked than Lily's. Mr. Blackwood, Dr. Bennett began carefully, guardianship is a significant responsibility, not a decision to make impulsively out of gratitude. I'm aware, Richard Towie replied, finding certainty as he spoke. But Lily and I have developed a rapport. She's comfortable here. It would provide stability during a tumultuous time. While unusual, it's not unprecedented, Ms. Washington interjected. Given the extraordinary circumstances and Mr. Blackwood's resources, temporary guardianship could be considered while permanent arrangements are explored. Dr. Bennett still looked skeptical. We would need to conduct a home study, background checks, multiple interviews. All of which I welcome, Richard interrupted. I'm simply suggesting we consider what's best for Lily right now, not what's most procedurally convenient. Throughout this discussion, Lily had remained silent, her eyes darting between the adults as they debated her future. Finally, she spoke. Don't I get a say? The room fell silent. Dr. Bennett recovered first. Of course you do, Lily. What would you like? She looked at Richard, her expression a complex mixture of hope and wariness. Is this just because I helped you? Because you don't owe me anything? It's not about owing, Richard said quietly. It's about doing what's right. For both of us. Lily considered this, then turned to Dr. Bennett. I want to stay here, at least for now. The adults exchanged glances, a silent negotiation taking place above Lily's head. Finally, Harris spoke. Given the unusual circumstances and Lily's role as a key witness, I believe we can arrange emergency temporary guardianship while the formal process proceeds. With appropriate oversight, of course. Dr. Bennett nodded reluctantly. I'll need to file the paperwork immediately, and Mr. Blackwood will schedule that home study for early next week. As the meeting concluded and the visitors prepared to leave, Richard felt a small hand slip into his. Looking down, he saw Lily gazing up at him with a mixture of uncertainty and something that might, with time and trust, become hope. "Did you mean it?" she asked when they were alone. "About wanting me to stay?" "Every word," Richard assured her, "but only if that's what you want too." Lily's answer was to squeeze his hand once, briefly but firmly, before letting go, a gesture more eloquent than any words could have been. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of legal proceedings, social worker visits, and gradual adjustments. As Richard and Lily navigated their new arrangement, emergency temporary guardianship had been granted with surprising efficiency. A combination of Richard's resources, Detective Harris's advocacy, and the unusual circumstances of the case had expedited a process normally mired in bureaucracy. For Lily, the transition from street survival to penthouse living brought daily revelations. The concept of having her own space, reliable meals, and an adult who consistently followed through on promises was foreign territory. She approached each day with cautious optimism, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Richard to reveal that this was all temporary charity that would soon expire. For Richard, the learning curve was equally steep. His ordered, predictable life had been upended by the presence of a child who asked direct questions, maintained odd hours, and viewed his world with unfiltered honesty. Mrs. Chen had been invaluable, helping transform the guest suite into a proper bedroom with bright colors and age-appropriate furnishings, guiding Richard on practical matters like school applications and pediatrician appointments. On a crisp October morning, Richard found Lily at the breakfast table surrounded by shopping bags. "Did you buy out the entire store?" he asked, accepting coffee from Mrs. Chen. "Ms. Washington took me shopping yesterday while you were in meetings," Lily explained. "She said I needed appropriate attire for the hearing tomorrow." The hearing, a formality to extend Richard's temporary guardianship while the adoption process proceeded, loomed large in both their minds. Despite assurances from Richard's legal team that everything was progressing smoothly, Lily remained anxious. "Want to show me what you selected?" Richard asked, sensing her need for distraction. Lily pulled out a navy blue dress with a white collar, simple but elegant. "Ms. Washington said this looks respectful but not pretentious." "I don't know what pretentious means." "It means trying too hard to impress people," Richard explained. "And she's right. That dress is perfect." Lily fingered the fabric. "It's the most expensive thing I've ever owned." Richard felt the familiar ache that often accompanied Lily's matter-of-fact observations about her previous life. "You've had your preliminary meeting with Judge Reynolds, right? What did you think of her?" "She was nice. Asked me lots of questions about living here, if I felt safe, if I was happy." Lily pushed her cereal around the bowl. "I told her the truth." "Which is?" Lily looked up, her blue eyes serious. "That I never thought I'd have a real home again, but I'm starting to believe this might be it." The simple statement hit Richard with unexpected force. This child, who had been failed by every adult in her life, was cautiously extending trust to him, a gift more valuable than any deal he'd ever closed. "It is," he assured her. "No matter what happens in court tomorrow, this is your home for as long as you want it to be." A small smile ghosted across Lily's face before she changed the subject. "Detective Harris called yesterday. She said they've arrested more people connected to the case." Richard nodded. The investigation had expanded dramatically over the past weeks. What had initially appeared to be an isolated incident had revealed itself as an elaborate network, targeting wealthy individuals across the East Coast. Vanessa, whose real name turned out to be Elena Markov, was cooperating fully with authorities, trading information for considerations in her eventual sentencing. The detective also said, "I might not have to testify in court because of the recordings and my statement," Lily continued. "Is that true?" "It's looking that way," Richard confirmed. "The evidence against them is overwhelming." Relief washed over Lily's face. The prospect of facing her former girlfriend in court had clearly been weighing on her. Richard had been advocating aggressively for Lily to be spared that trauma, leveraging every connection he had to protect her. "I have a surprise for you," Richard said, changing the subject. "How would you like to meet someone special today?" Lily's eyes narrowed suspiciously. What kind of special? My sister and her family are flying in from London for the hearing. They'll be staying with us for a week. Your sister? Alarm flashed across Lily's face. You never mentioned a sister. Elizabeth, she's 3 years younger than me. Has 2 children, Sophie, who's 14, and James, who's 9. Lily absorbed this information with visible anxiety. Do they know about me? Of course, they're excited to meet you. But what if they don't like me? What if they think you shouldn't adopt some random street kid? The fear in her voice was palpable. Richard moved to sit beside her, careful to maintain the physical distance she still preferred. First, you're not some random street kid. You're Lily, brave, intelligent, and perceptive. Second, my family's opinion won't change anything about our arrangement. And third, he smiled gently, they're going to adore you. Lily didn't look convinced. What time do they arrive? Their flight lands at 2. We'll meet them here around 4. The hours until the family's arrival passed with increasing tension. Lily changed outfits 3 times, rejected Mrs. Chen's offer to style her hair, and finally retreated to her room to read, her newest passion since Richard had introduced her to the penthouse library. At precisely 4 o'clock, the elevator announced visitors. Richard found Lily standing at the far end of the living room, her posture rigid with anxiety. Ready? He asked. She nodded once, sharply, as the elevator doors opened. Elizabeth Blackwood Hayes swept into the penthouse with the dynamic energy that had always characterized her. Tall and elegant like her brother, with the same piercing grey eyes, she paused only briefly to embrace Richard before her gaze found Lily. You must be the young lady who saved my impossible brother, she said warmly, approaching Lily with an extended hand rather than presuming a hug. I'm Elizabeth. Thank you for keeping him around. We're rather fond of him, despite his workaholic tendencies. Lily shook her hand cautiously. You talk like him. All proper. Elizabeth laughed, a rich sound that filled the room. Boarding school conditioning, I'm afraid. Impossible to shake. Her husband, David, a professor of literature at Oxford, followed with their children. Sophie, 14 going on 20, offered Lily a shy smile and a quiet hello. 9-year-old James had no such reservations. Is it true you lived on the streets? He asked, eyes wide with fascination. Did you fight bad guys? Uncle Richard said. You were a hero. James, Elizabeth admonished. We discussed appropriate questions, remember? It's okay, Lily said, relaxing slightly at the boy's directness. I did live on the streets for a while, and I didn't fight anyone, but I did help your uncle when some bad people tried to hurt him. James looked impressed. That's even cooler than what Dad said. The ice broken, they moved to the living room where Mrs. Chen had prepared tea and refreshments. Richard watched with quiet satisfaction as Lily gradually thawed under Elizabeth's gentle questioning and James's enthusiasm. By the time dinner was served, Lily was sitting cross-legged on the floor with James, teaching him a card trick she'd learned from another street kid. Later that evening, after the children had been settled in their rooms, Richard joined Elizabeth and David on the terrace. The October air was crisp, the city lights creating a tapestry of illumination below them. She's remarkable, Richard, Elizabeth said, sipping her wine. Absolutely remarkable. I know, he agreed. Sometimes I can hardly believe what she's survived. Have you learned anything more about her? Background, David asked. Richard shook his head. Very little. Her mother died when she was 7, illness of some kind, though Lily doesn't know the details. She stayed with a family friend who eventually abandoned her. No record of her birth has been found, which suggests her mother may have been undocumented. The authorities are creating legal identity documents for her now. Elizabeth studied her. Brother's face. This is about more than gratitude, isn't it? This connection between you two. Much more, Richard admitted. She's changed everything, Liz. How I see the world, how I think about my priorities, my legacy. Parenthood tends to do that, David observed with a smile. Is it terrifying? Richard asked suddenly. Being responsible for shaping another person's life? Absolutely, Elizabeth confirmed. But also the most rewarding challenge you'll ever face. and from what I've seen today, you're already rising to it beautifully." The following morning brought the formal hearing before Judge Reynolds. Lily, resplendent in her new dress, sat beside Richard in the judge's chambers, flanked by Ms. Washington and Richard's attorney. Elizabeth and David waited outside, having offered to attend as moral support. Judge Reynolds, a distinguished woman in her 60s with a reputation for thoroughness in family court matters, reviewed the documentation before addressing them. "This is an unusual case," she began, "but not unprecedented. Mr. Blackwood, you're petitioning for an extension of temporary guardianship while the adoption process continues. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Richard confirmed, "and you understand the responsibilities this entails, particularly given Lily's unique background and potential challenges." "I do." The judge turned to Lily. "And you, young lady? We spoke last week about your wishes. Have they changed at all?" "No, ma'am," Lily replied clearly. "I want to stay with Richard." Judge Reynolds studied them both, her expression thoughtful. "The reports from Child Services are overwhelmingly positive. Ms. Washington's assessment indicates a secure and nurturing environment. The background investigation reveals no concerns regarding Mr. Blackwood's suitability as a guardian." She closed the file. "Given these factors, I'm extending the temporary guardianship for 6 months, during which time the formal adoption process will proceed. Barring unforeseen circumstances, I anticipate approving the adoption at that time." Relief washed over Richard. 6 months would allow them to establish a routine, get Lily enrolled in school and begin building a life together without the immediate threat of separation. "Thank you, Your Honor," he said sincerely. The judge smiled, her official demeanor softening slightly. "This situation arose from unfortunate circumstances, but sometimes beautiful things grow from difficult soil. I wish you both the best as you build your family." Outside the courthouse, Elizabeth and David waited with hugs and congratulations. Sophie had made a welcome to the family card, signed by all of them, which she presented to Lily with shy pride. "Does this mean you're my cousin now?" James asked Lily. "Almost," Richard explained. "It will be official in about 6 months." "That's forever," James groaned. "Can't we just say she's our cousin now?" "Fine by me," Lily said, the most relaxed Richard had seen her since Elizabeth's family arrived. They celebrated with lunch at Lily's favorite diner, her choice, despite Richard's offer of any restaurant in the city. Murphy's Diner had become something of a touchstone for them, a place where Lily felt comfortable and known. As they were finishing their meal, Richard's phone rang. Detective Harris with news he'd been expecting but dreading. Vanessa, Elena, wanted to meet with him, alone. "You don't have to do this," Elizabeth said when he explained the situation. "Whatever she wants to say, your lawyers can handle it." "I need to," Richard replied, "for closure if nothing else." "What about Lily?" David asked quietly, nodding toward where Lily and the children were engaged in an animated conversation about a video game. "I won't tell her until after. It would only worry her unnecessarily." The following day, while Elizabeth took the children to Central Park, Richard visited the detention center where Elena awaited trial. She had lost weight, her designer clothes replaced by standard issue fair tire, her previously perfect makeup absent, yet she still carried herself with the poise that had first attracted him. "Thank you for coming," she said, as they sat across from each other in the visiting room. "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I," Richard admitted. "Why did you want to see me?" Elena's gaze was direct, her voice steady. "To apologize. Not that it changes anything, but you deserve to hear it face to face. An apology for attempting to kill me seems somewhat inadequate." "I know." She looked down at her hands. "What I did, what I agreed to be part of, was unforgivable. But I want you to know that it wasn't all a lie." Richard felt a flare of anger. 2 years of my life, Elena, or whatever your real name is. 2 years of calculated deception." "Elena is my real name," she said quietly. "Markov is my married name, a marriage that existed only on paper, part of establishing my false identity. But Elena is the name my parents gave me." Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know one true thing about me. There were moments, many moments, when I forgot why I was with you. When I wished I could erase my debt, my involvement, and just be the woman you thought I was. Richard studied her face, searching for manipulation or deception. He found only resignation and regret. The girl who warned you, Eleanor continued. I heard she's living with you now. Richard tensed. She's off limits in this conversation. I understand. I just wanted to say I'm glad, for both of you. Eleanor's composure cracked slightly. When they told me what happened, that you'd switched the desserts, I felt relief. Beneath everything else, I felt relief that you were safe. Richard didn't know what to do with this confession. It didn't erase the betrayal, the calculated planning, the fact that she would have watched him die without intervention. The others in your organization, he said finally, are they all in custody? Most. Not the ones at the top. They're too insulated, too careful. Her voice lowered. That's why I asked to see you, to warn you to be vigilant. They don't like loose ends. Richard felt a chill. Are you suggesting Lily and I are still in danger? I'm suggesting caution. They lost millions when this operation was exposed. People like that don't forgive easily. As Richard left the detention, Santa Elena's warning echoed in his mind. He'd already increased security at the penthouse and hired personal protection for Lily's outings, but perhaps additional measures were warranted. Returning home, he found Elizabeth and the children had returned from the park. Lily was teaching Sophie how to play chess, a game Richard had introduced her to just weeks earlier, which she'd taken to with remarkable aptitude. Everything okay? Elizabeth asked, noting his expression. Fine, he assured her, pushing aside concerns for the moment. Just tired. That evening, after everyone had retired to their rooms, Richard found Lily sitting on the terrace, wrapped in a blanket against the October chill. Couldn't sleep? He asked, joining her. She shook her head. Too much happened today, my brain won't shut off. I know the feeling. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights. Finally, Lily spoke. Your sister's nice, so is her family. They like you very much. James has been asking when you can visit them in London. Lily smiled slightly. He's a cool kid. Asks a million questions, though. Family trait, I'm afraid. Another silence, this one thoughtful. Richard, what happens? No, after the adoption, I mean. Whatever we want to happen, he replied. School for you, work for me, building a life together. Do you ever worry you'll regret it? Taking me in? Richard turned to face her fully. Lily, in my entire life I've never been more certain of any decision than I am about this one. The only thing I regret is that you had to suffer so much before we found each other. Lily nodded, absorbing his words. Then, in a movement that surprised them both, she leaned against his side, the first time she had initiated physical contact beyond a brief hand touch. I'm glad I was behind that restaurant that night, she said softly. Richard carefully placed his arm around her shoulders. So am I, Lily, so am I. As they sat together under the vast canopy of stars, Richard made a silent promise. Whatever threats might still exist, whatever challenges lay ahead, he would ensure that Lily never again faced the world alone. 6. Months later, spring had transformed New York City. Cherry blossoms erupted in Central Park, sidewalk cafes spilled onto sunlit streets, and a palpable energy vibrated through the awakening metropolis. In Richard Blackwood's penthouse, similar transformations had taken place, subtle but profound shifts that had turned a stylish but impersonal space into a genuine home. Lily's room no longer resembled a guest suite. The walls, once a neutral blue, now displayed a mural of the night sky that she and Richard had painted together over a weekend. Bookshelves overflowed with volumes ranging from classic literature to modern fantasy, evidence of her voracious reading habit. A desk by the window held a computer where she completed assignments for Westridge Academy, the progressive private school she'd been attending since January. The kitchen, once pristine and rarely used, now bore evidence of cooking lessons with Mrs. Chen, who had discovered in Lily an enthusiastic apprentice. The formal dining room had been repurposed as a multi-purpose space where Richard reviewed architectural plans while Lily worked on school projects, classical music playing softly in the background. Most telling were the photographs that now adorned walls and tables throughout the penthouse. Lily and Richard at the Thanksgiving table with Elizabeth's family, Lily's first ski trip to Aspen, Richard attending Lily's debate competition at school, a visual chronicle of a family being formed, one shared experience at a time. On this particular Saturday morning, Richard found Lily in the kitchen, attempting to make crepes under Mrs. Chen's watchful guidance. "The secret is in the wrist," Mrs. Chen was explaining. "Too much movement, and the batter spreads unevenly." Lily, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration, expertly flipped a perfect golden crepe. "I did it." "Well done," Richard commented, pouring himself coffee. "You've mastered a skill that continues to elude me." "That's because you have no patience," Lily replied, with the candid assessment that still caught Richard off guard sometimes. "Mrs. Chen says cooking is like architecture. It needs precision and planning." "Mrs. Chen is very wise," Richard agreed, winking at his housekeeper. "Are these celebratory crepes?" "Maybe," Lily said, suddenly focused intently on her task. "Depends on what happens today. Today, the culmination of 6 months of legal processes, home studies, and preparations. Judge Reynolds would make her final ruling on Richard's petition to adopt Lily. Though all indicators suggested approval was certain, Lily had remained cautiously optimistic rather than confident. "Sophie texted me this morning," Lily mentioned, changing the subject. "She's planning to visit during summer break." Richard nodded, recognizing the deflection tactic. "That would be wonderful. Perhaps we could all go to the Hamptons house for a week." "With James too?" Lily asked, brightening. "The whole crew. David has a writing fellowship at Columbia this summer, so they'll be in New York for 6 weeks. The relationship between Lily and her soon-to-be cousins had flourished over twice-weekly video calls and care packages exchanged across the Atlantic. Sophie had overcome her initial shyness to become a confidant for Lily, as she navigated the unfamiliar terrain of middle school social dynamics. James simply adored Lily, who patiently taught him card tricks and chess strategies during their calls. After breakfast, they retreated to their rooms to prepare for the afternoon hearing. Richard, adjusting his tie before the mirror, reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past 6 months. Lily had displayed remarkable resilience and adaptability, but the transition hadn't been without challenges. Nightmares had plagued her initially, vivid dreams where she was back on the streets or being pursued by shadowy figures. She'd struggled with basic routines like regular mealtimes and bedtimes, concepts foreign to a child who had survived by improvisation. School had presented its own obstacles. Despite her natural intelligence, Lily's education had been irregular at best. Placement testing revealed significant gaps alongside areas of surprising proficiency. Richard had hired tutors to work with her intensively before enrollment, and Westridge Academy had created a modified curriculum to accommodate her unique situation. Trust remained the most delicate work in progress. Lily had opened up incrementally about her past, fragments of memories shared in quiet moments. Her mother, Maria, had been undocumented, working multiple jobs to support them. After her illness, cancer, Lily now understood, there had been a succession of temporary arrangements, none lasting more than a few months. By 9, she'd learned that institutions meant separation, and foster homes meant uncertainty, so she'd chosen the streets instead, where at least she controlled her own fate. A knock at his door interrupted Richard's thoughts. Lily stood in the teeny doorway, wearing the navy dress from the initial hearing, now paired with a cardigan Elizabeth had sent from London. Her hair, which had grown past her shoulders, was pulled back with a simple clip. "Do I look okay?" she asked, uncharacteristically uncertain. "Perfect," Richard assured her. "Ready for the big day?" "I guess." She twisted the edge of her cardigan. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "After today, if everything goes the way it's supposed to, what should I call you? I mean, I've been calling you Richard, but if you're legally my father..." The question caught Richard unprepared. They'd discussed practical aspects of the adoption extensively, but never this fundamental element. "Whatever feels right to you," he said carefully. "There's no obligation to change what you call me." Lily nodded, absorbing this. "Okay, I just wanted to know the rules." "With us, the only rule is honesty," Richard reminded her. "Everything else we figure out as we go." The courthouse felt different this time, less intimidating, more familiar. Ms. Washington greeted them warmly, as did Richard's attorney. Even Detective Harris made an appearance, having remained in contact with Lily throughout the months of legal proceedings. "Nervous?" Harris asked Lily as they waited outside the judge's chambers. "A little," Lily admitted. "Something could still go wrong, right?" Harris shook her head. "Not a chance. I've never seen a more thorough preparation for an adoption. Every box checked, every question answered. Plus, Judge Reynolds is a big fan of yours." "Mine?" Lily looked surprised. "She's mentioned your case in 2 public speeches about resilience and second chances, without naming names, of course." This information seemed to steady Lily. By the time they were called into chambers, her shoulders had relaxed and her breathing had evened out. Judge Reynolds greeted them with a warm smile. "Mr. Blackwood, Lily, it's good to see you both again. I understand things have been progressing well?" "Very well, Your Honor," Richard confirmed. The judge reviewed the final reports, nodding with satisfaction. "Ms. Washington, any remaining concerns from Child Services?" "None whatsoever, Your Honor. The home environment is exemplary. Lily is thriving academically and socially, and the bond between her and Mr. Blackwood has developed beautifully." "And Lily?" Judge Reynolds turned, her attention to the girl. "How do you feel about making this arrangement permanent?" Lily met the judge's gaze steadily. "It already feels permanent to me. The papers just make it official for everyone else." A smile flickered across the judge's face. "Well put. Having reviewed all documentation and recommendations, I find no reason to delay. The petition for adoption is hereby granted." She signed the official documents with a flourish, then extended her hand to Lily. "Congratulations, Lily Blackwood. That's quite a name to live up to." "Blackwood?" Lily echoed, looking at Richard in surprise. "Only if you want it," he assured her quickly. "We can hyphenate or choose something entirely different." "No," Lily said firmly. "Blackwood is good. It fits." Outside the courthouse, Detective Harris offered congratulations before pulling Richard aside briefly. "The last of the network has been apprehended," she informed him quietly. "Elena Markov's testimony was instrumental. You and Lily can finally put this behind you." The news lifted a weight Richard hadn't realized he was still carrying. The increased security measures, the bodyguards, the enhanced systems at the penthouse, the background checks for everyone who came into contact with Lily could perhaps be eased now. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "For everything." Harris smiled. "Just doing my job. Though I admit, this case has been particularly satisfying. Speaking of which, I have something for Lily." She presented Lily with a small box. Inside was a junior detective badge, unofficial but impressively realistic. "Honorary," Harris explained, "for exceptional service to the NYPD. Not many people. Get one of these." Lily's face lit up as she pinned the badge to her cardigan. "Cool. Does it come with handcuffs?" "Absolutely not," Richard interjected, making both Harris and Lily laugh. They celebrated that evening with a small gathering at the penthouse. Elizabeth and her family joined via video call from London, raising champagne glasses, and in the he children's case, sparkling cider, in a transatlantic toast. Richard's closest friends, a deliberately small circle he'd cultivated over the years, came bearing gifts and warm wishes. Even Mrs. Chen joined the festivities, presenting Lily with a handwritten book of family recipes to begin your collection. As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Richard found Lily on the terrace, gazing at the city lights with the contemplative expression that often preceded her most profound observations. "Happy?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "Yeah," she said simply. "It's weird, though. I've spent so much time being worried about today, and now it's over. That's often how momentous occasions feel. The anticipation can be more intense than the event itself." Lily nodded. "I was thinking about my mum. She would have liked you, I think. I wish I could have met her, Richard said softly. She must have been remarkable to have raised someone like you, even for a short time. She used to tell me stories about the stars, Lily continued, gazing upward at the few visible through New York's light pollution. She said that when we love go away, they become stars so they can always watch over us. Richard followed her gaze upward. A beautiful thought. I think she would be happy that I'm not alone anymore. Lily turned to face him fully. That we're not alone anymore. The simple truth of the statement resonated deeply. Before Lily, Richard had been surrounded by people yet fundamentally isolated, connected through business and social obligations, but rarely through genuine understanding. Now, through the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together, he had found family in its truest sense. I have something for you, he said, reaching into his pocket. A small adoption gift. He handed her a velvet box. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a star-shaped pendant, small diamonds catching the city lights. It's beautiful, Lily whispered, touching it gently. Look at the back, Richard suggested. Lily turned the pendant over to find an inscription. Family found, not lost. Tears welled in her eyes, a rare display of emotion from a child who had learned early to conceal vulnerability. Will you help me put it on? As Richard fastened the necklace, Lily spoke in a voice so quiet he almost missed it. Dad. The word hung in the air between them, more precious than any jewel, more binding than any legal document. Yes, he answered, his own voice rough with emotion. Nothing, Lily said, turning to face him with a smile that illuminated her entire being. Just trying it out. Richard pulled her into a gentle embrace, which she returned without hesitation, another milestone in their evolving relationship. They stood together on the terrace, father and daughter not by blood but by choice, by perseverance, by the mysterious workings of fate that had placed a street-smart girl behind an exclusive restaurant on exactly the right night. 1 year later, Murphy's Diner had a new regular customer, or rather customers. Every Saturday morning, Richard and Lily Blackwood occupied the same worn booth where they'd shared their first meal together. The tradition had begun as a reminder of their journey, but had evolved into something more, a touchstone of authenticity, in lives that now included private school galas, business functions, and social obligations. On this particular Saturday, as they finished their ritual breakfast, Lily noticed a young boy watching them from across the diner. No more than 8 or 9, with clothes too large for his thin frame and wary eyes that reminded her painfully of herself. Dad, she said quietly, the word now comfortable and natural. 3 o'clock, by the counter. Richard followed her gaze, instantly understanding. What do you think? He's hungry and scared. Without further discussion, Richard signaled their waitress and ordered an additional breakfast to go, plus one to be eaten at the counter. As they prepared to leave, Lily approached the boy with careful nonchalance. The counter seat's better if you're alone, she advised him. Monica makes sure you get extra bacon if you sit there. The boy eyed her suspiciously. I'm waiting for someone. Sure, Lily agreed easily, but while you're waiting, you should eat. We already ordered for the counter. It's paid for. Would be ashamed to waste it. She placed a $20 bill on the counter beside him, in case your someone doesn't show. The boy's expression flickered between pride and desperate hunger. Why? Lily met his gaze with perfect understanding. Because someone once did the same for me. Outside, Richard waited patiently. Do you think he'll accept it? Eventually, when we're gone and he can pretend it's his idea. Richard nodded, familiar with the complex pride of children who've had to fend for themselves. We could do more. I know, but first steps first. Trust takes time. They walked together through the spring sunshine, father and daughter, their shared journey reflected in the easy rhythm of their conversation and the unconscious synchronization of their steps. 6 months after Richard's adoption of Lily had been finalized, he had established the Blackwood Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting children in unstable living situations. Unlike traditional shelters or foster programs, the foundation focused on creating pathways to stability through education, mentorship, and family reunification where possible. The first Blackwood Center had opened in Manhattan, offering everything from emergency housing to legal assistance for undocumented families to educational support. Lily, despite her young age, had been involved in every aspect of planning, her first-hand experience in forming policies and programs that traditional social services often overlooked. "Do you think we should tell Detective Harris about him?" Lily asked as they walked. "Let's see if he returns to the diner next week," Richard suggested. "Some battles can't be rushed." Lily nodded, understanding the delicate balance between help and interference. Her hand rose to touch the star pendant she never removed, a gesture that had become habitual when she was thinking deeply. "Dad?" she said as they waited for the car. "Remember when you asked me why I warned you that night at the restaurant?" "Of course. I think I finally understand why. It wasn't just because poisoning someone is wrong. It was because—" She hesitated, finding the words, "because sometimes people need someone to see them, really see them, when no one else does." Richard felt his throat tighten with emotion. "And now we see each other." "Yeah," Lily agreed, her smile brightening the already sunny day. "Now we do." As they drove through the city streets toward home, Richard reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them to this moment. A wealthy man who had everything except connection, a street-smart girl who had nothing except courage, and the inexplicable timing that had placed them both at Le Ciel on that fateful night. Some might call it coincidence, others divine intervention. Richard Blackwood, once a man who believed only in what could be measured and quantified, now embraced a simpler explanation. Sometimes the universe conspires to bring together the souls who need each other most. And, as Lily pointed out landmarks and shared observations about their city, her city now too, Richard knew with absolute certainty that regardless of the circumstances that had united them, their lives had been meant to intersect all along. "Dad," Lily said suddenly, interrupting his thoughts, "I've been thinking about what Judge Reynolds said, about living up to the Blackwood name." "And Kiwa?" "I think maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the name has to live up to us, to what we build together."